Hey folks, Scott Stevenson with the Re-Inspired podcast. First, we're so grateful that you're with us today. And secondly, today's conversation is absolute magic. We're meeting with a person who's a business leader, someone who empowers and lifts people up, somebody who's a cancer survivor, was on the ground during 9/11 in New York City, somebody who spends their time in life empowering and trying to help and lift up other people. We're going to learn about this person's morning routine. We're going to learn about their mindset. So it's an amazing conversation. Please join me while we get to spend some quality time with the amazing Shanna Briggs. Stay tuned. This isn't just another story. This is your story, your triumphs, your conquest, your accomplishments, the things you've overcome. These are the things that make you you. But most importantly, these are the stories of what lies ahead. It's time to get re-inspired. Hey everyone, welcome to the Re-Inspired podcast. We're super excited about today's episode. We're with the one and only Shanna Briggs. But before we start today's amazing interview, make sure you pound that subscribe button so we can keep delivering top tier content straight to your inbox. So without further ado, we're going to start today's conversation. Shanna Briggs, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Scott?
Good. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
No, it's our absolute pleasure. So I know you as a business professional. I know you as a leader, right?
Yeah.
Someone that helps and coaches and lifts people up. But I also know, more importantly, you carry the title of mom and wife and all these other things. So just to kind of start us off, how would you describe you at like the 25,000 foot view?
Oh my gosh. Well, yes, like many females and mothers and working mothers, a woman of many hats. I'm very outgoing and I just love people so much. And I've just learned throughout my life. I just bring a lot of that to what I do. Even before I got into the position I'm in with my company, I just love on people and I love on my kids and I love on my husband and I have a lot of energy, even though I'm so tired every night.
I hear you.
But I just have a lot of energy and it's just fun. Life is fun. So
what I'm hearing is you are a giant positive ball of energy.
Yes.
Okay, I love it, and I know I love that. There's lots of folks on the receiving end of that. Would you say that being that positive influence or that energy that can come into a room or a situation, is that what fills you up? Being that energetic person?
Oh my gosh, yes, 100%. So many times I meet with a client or I meet with someone one-on-one, and it's really when I get to know them and when I really get to know, I'm also a very empathetic person. So when I learn their story, almost too empathetic sometimes, it really affects me. But that's when I get to, the grit of who someone is. And that's when I really become close with someone. And that's what I thrive on. And after great meetings with people, I get in my car and it's just like, that was such a great meeting. And I'm so excited. And I'm so excited when I meet those people and I get to work with them and establish relationships with them moving forward. It's what I love to do for sure. Yeah.
Have you ever had, and we'll talk about this a little bit later, but you talked about their story. And so what I want to do is I would just want to hop into your story. But one of the things I want to make sure we talk about is, have you learned any tricks on how you balance where all this energy you put out to others goes to make sure it's evenly spread or properly spread? Or do you end up being the one that just, I don't need to sleep, I'm just going to keep going and I'll carry all the weight myself?
Well, I'm a lot of the second.
Okay, no, I think we all are, right?
And I'm like, oh, I'm fine, I've got this. But it is really this time of year too. It's the holidays right now. And I do find myself towards the end of the year being spread very thin. And it's just looking at what I've done for the year and looking at my accomplishments, but also looking at what I want to change in the new year. I'm not one for big, like, what New Year's resolutions. It's more goals, or the word of the year, but it's more like, what is my one goal instead of resolution? I hate that word. So it's really just looking forward to what I want to change and what may not have worked so well. So I said this year, this time of year, I did spread myself really thin and I gave myself to a lot of other people besides my family, my kids and my husband, which I need to reset that. And it's just taking a look at what I did and resetting it. And talking to my husband about it. We literally sat and had a glass of wine last night. And we're like, okay, we didn't get this done in December with the kids. We need to do it in January, February. We need to go do this with them. So just like, oh yes, yes. What is my focus? What is important to me in my life? And it is my husband and my kids. So
Totally.
just kind of, he's really good too, to help me reset and balance that out.
One of the things I really love about what you're saying is it sounds like you guys are doing your best to check in with each other as you go, instead of looking a year in the rear view going, who are you? You know what I mean? So like
It's hard.
little
Yes.
intentional course corrections
Yeah.
are a lot easier than
Yes.
lifestyle changes.
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's hop into lifestyle. Let's
Okay.
talk about you. I want to know uh, your story. I know
Yeah.
parts of it,
Yeah.
but where'd you grow up?
I grew up on a farm in Nebraska,
What part of Nebraska?
Grand Island.
Great. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep. 90 miles west of Lincoln, right on I-80 there. So I grew up, my dad was a corn and soybean farmer.
Okay.
And it was a farm that got passed down generation to generation. And it's a huge farm that's been in our family for hundreds of years. So, and it just keeps getting passed down son to son. So my dad has passed now, so my brother has it. So
Okay.
his sons will have it. So I grew up a little corn husker.
Oh, that's amazing. Okay. So what was life like in, I mean,
Yeah,
it's a decent size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's decent. It was too small for me.
All
I
right.
always thought I wanted big city, which I eventually got to, but I loved it. Looking back, there's just something about growing up on the farm, getting your hands dirty, having the animals, going to help your dad irrigate. There's just something about that I didn't realize at the time was so special. And now
Yeah.
that my kids haven't had that, it kind of makes me a little sad.
I get it.
But it's just, and then there's just, the people are different there too.
Yeah.
Not that it's bad in the city or anywhere, but the people are, I don't even know how to describe it. They're just different. Great,
Yeah.
good, in a good way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's it. So what was high school like? What were you into when you were
I
a
was
kid?
into everything.
Okay. All right.
Which also doesn't surprise me with how I am right now.
Yeah.
I was into sports.
Okay.
I played volleyball and softball were my two main sports.
All right.
I won state championship volleyball my junior year. I was a back row specialist because I wasn't tall enough to be a hitter.
Okay.
So I loved volleyball. I was a really great softball player. I looked at playing in college, but I actually ended up doing theater in college.
All
So I
right.
was into theater in
Yeah.
high school and music and singing and all that stuff.
All that
and
stuff.
Yeah, honor choir and you name it, I was in it. I did everything.
Okay.
So it started young.
and did you maintain decent grades while you did all that?
Yes, I in the top 20% of my class.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
impressive. I just embarrassingly, I had an interview with William and Mary at like a college fair.
Okay.
And they looked at my transcripts and then how active I was, with sports and all the stuff. And they said, Mr. Stevenson, we're looking for someone who shines before 3 o'clock as well. So that's why I had to ask. I mean, it's amazing you're that active and doing the stuff.
Well, and it is really telling because I'm a perfectionist. So
Yep.
now I look back on everything that I did when I was younger and I had to be the best at it. And so now I think that transpires in a lot of what I do in
Okay.
my life now and with my kids and everything. So it did start young.
Yeah.
Sure did.
Wait, where was there a particular influence? You're like, oh, my mom or my grandma or my dad was like that, or do you think it was just your wiring,
No.
how you showed up?
Both. I do credit my father
Okay.
to the hard work. He was a farmer.
Yeah.
He worked from sun up to sundown. I didn't see him a lot growing up, which as a kid, I thought that was a negative, but I knew he was working the farm and you
Yeah.
don't get days off. The only days you get off is when it rains. So I really look back and my siblings and I are all like this. We're all overachievers. We're all working the hardest we can. And that is definitely our father.
All right.
My mom was a stay-at-home mom, which no disrespect, because that is, I
that's
couldn't do that. It's
Yeah.
a hard job. I don't ever want that. But so definitely to both of them, really, but really my father being the
Okay.
farmer. So yeah,
Oh, that's very
I
interesting.
know.
So you have you obviously aren't one of the folks that not bloomed, but you didn't hit your high point in high school. What took place after high
Well,
school?
that's good.
Yeah. No, I'm saying you haven't even peaked yet. You're
Some
still
people could,
well, yeah, that's what I was
think
trying to
differently,
think.
but
Yeah,
yeah,
people
no,
peak in high
no,
school.
yeah.
You're not that person. I know that.
went to college. I knew I loved growing up in Nebraska, but I knew I wanted to leave Nebraska.
Okay.
I was counting down the days till I graduated high school and I could leave. Um, I went to college in Evansville, Indiana, University of Evansville for theater. I had to audition. I at the time, back in the 90s, just dated myself. The University of Evansville was top 12 for theater schools.
All right.
So I auditioned. It was hard to get into. I was on the wait list initially. I really um I really found a bond with the theater director.
All right.
He oh, I forgot to tell you. I did track as well in high school. I threw the shot put.
Of course you did.
And it was really funny because I was little for shot put throwers.
Yeah.
So the theater director at Evansville, Indiana, when I first met him, I told him that. And he just thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. And so I saw him at another audition in Chicago and we just kept that relationship. And so when he called, I was in Boston actually auditioning and I was about ready to sign with Emerson College.
Okay.
Almost signed with them. And he called me and was like, "You're off the wait list. I want you at Evansville." And then I just knew that that's where I wanted to go.
So it almost sounds your theatrical prowess was in demand if you're meeting with that many folks, or
yeah. I mean, it was.
or is
It
Grand
was-
Island a big unknown theater?
No.
Okay.
No. But I did learn in going to college and then moving to New York City. I moved to New York City after I graduated college
Okay.
to pursue acting. In Grand Island, Nebraska, I was a big fish in a little pond. And then I became a small fish in a big pond. So that was a big wake up call
Right.
at both the theater program and especially New York City. So
I know, just because we've talked off camera and stuff before, that in the midst of all this stuff we're talking about, whether it was high school and sports and good grades and shot put now, that has to be a resume piece forever.
yes.
That there was some other stuff that came into your life.
Yeah.
Are you comfortable talking
Yeah,
about?
yeah. I actually it was when I was in college, one of my doctors found a lump on my thyroid.
Okay.
And obviously I was 21 at the time. And I was like, "What do you mean a lump? Like what I don't even what are you talking about?" And cancer was so far removed and not even in my vocabulary. So they did an ultrasound, they did a biopsy, and they called it a cyst. And they were like, "It's just a cyst. We're going to get you on thyroid medication, but we need to monitor it." Okay, young girl that doesn't really even know what that means and anything.
And why would you?
Well, totally.
Right.
So I moved to New York City, pursued acting for 4 years, found a new endocrinologist there. And I remember asking her I was like, "Do I have to be on this thyroid medicine? I don't feel like it's doing anything." But she's like, "No, you're high risk." She's like, "We want to make sure with the thyroid medicine that it shrinks the thyroid, which shrinks the cyst." So I'm like, "Okay, I don't even sure, whatever." So continued on, moved to Denver. And after 4 years of being in college or in New York City, moved to Denver and I needed medication. So I was like, "Oh, I better find a new endocrinologist."
Gotcha.
So found a doctor here and he tested me, ultrasound, biopsy, and they all came back inconclusive. And I was like, "Okay, And so I still remember him meeting with me. He's like, "I want to remove that part of your thyroid, just that part with the cyst on it." And so, okay, the surgery. So you're going to cut my neck, like, all right. And he was like, I was 28 at the time,
Now, are you still
I-
dancing and singing and acting?
No, I moved to Denver and I got out of acting, although I do still have an acting agent here.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know.
Will you flash a SAG card at
Oh,
us or
no,
something?
no,
Okay,
no.
all right.
I'm non-union.
Okay.
But so I had gotten out of that and got into the restaurant business and thought I wanted to go back and get my master's degree. But he was like, "It's just too suspicious. We're going to remove that side of your thyroid." But he's like, "Oh, it's nothing. You're fine. You're young, you're healthy." I had just run my first half marathon. I felt the healthiest I'd ever felt in my life. And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "We'll go in and if it is cancer, we'll remove your whole thyroid, but I really doubt it is." So met with the surgeon, same thing. Surgeon's like, "Oh, you're young, you're healthy, you're fine." So a few months later, I had surgery. And the first thing I did when I woke up in the recovery room is I reached over to this side because the cyst was on this side. So I reached over to this side and it was cut up. And I just laid there. The nurse goes, "Yeah, sweetie, it was cancer." And I'm like laying there and I can't move. My neck is torn up. And just start crying. And I couldn't see my family. I couldn't see my boyfriend at the time because I was still in recovery,
Yeah.
you know? And so I was like, okay, what the heck does this mean? Like, what is cancer? Like, that's not a word that you ever expect or want to hear.
Right.
So then fast forward, the next couple of months were kind of a blur, honestly. And I got told so many times, it's the best kind of cancer to have, so many times. And at the time I was like, how can you say that? It's cancer. Like the
It-
best kind of cancer,
it's
it's still cancer.
It's a dirty word, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
but it's the best kind of cancer.
So your surgery,
Mhm.
did they remove your entire
Yep. Yep.
thyroid?
My whole thyroid, they had to. They checked the lymph nodes around it too, and that all came back clear.
Okay.
And they did say that they decided my tumor was less than a centimeter, so they did not have to do radioactive iodine treatment, which I started learning all this in the after post surgery. I go back and forth. At the time, I was very thankful that I didn't have to do the radioactive iodine treatment, and since it was so small, they treat it with my thyroid medicine. Still, 18 years later, they're still treating it with my thyroid medicine.
All right.
Which, like I said, it's a blessing and a curse because at the time I was like, okay, good. Because I read so much about thyroid patients who have to do the radioactive iodine treatment. That's not, I mean, you're radioactive and you can't be around your family and you can't really be around people and you have to get rid of anything you touch and sleep on. And so that was a scary thing. But I have struggled so much in the last 18 years with my thyroid and my levels being off and my mood and my exhaustion and my weight gain and weight loss and just every time I have moments where I'm like my thyroid is off, and just finding different doctors and getting tests done again. And it's so that has been frustrating. But in those last 18 years, I've really found when doctors say it was the best kind of cancer to have 100%.
Really?
Because I've lost my dad to cancer. I've lost my aunt to cancer. I just lost a fellow teammate to cancer. So, and I've seen what they've had to go through and their struggles, and everybody has someone that they know who they've lost to cancer. And you know what I had to deal with? Great. I would take it all over again because it really that was a very wow. That is the best kind of cancer to have.
So you were telling me a little bit like why you were in the moment. You come out of surgery,
Mm-hmm.
you feel the other side of your
Yep.
throat and can tell that a more extensive surgery has been done. Then you said the next couple months were a blur. Can you put that into words?
Yeah, I had to not work because that was back when I was in the restaurant business. Because I had just moved to Colorado and I was trying to figure out my next move and what I wanted to do. So I was at a steakhouse downtown and I had to not work for a month, and so I wasn't making money.
But you had piles of it sitting around.
Yeah,
in
just
front-
hanging out, waiting,
Okay.
just at my disposal.
Well, and and this is an honest question. I've seen people maybe that were struggling financially and that was all their worries, but then something like this shows up and all of a
Mhm.
sudden that doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine literally cannot imagine managing that.
Yeah,
So
and thankfully, gosh, I mean, thankfully I had parents who were able to help when needed, because if I didn't, that would have been really bad. The company I worked for, it was interesting. They had taken up a fund when I got back. And it was interesting because I had just left this other restaurant that I actually felt more at home at. And I went over to this other one for not very long. And so I was at this other one when I got diagnosed. And the general manager was actually pretty embarrassed by the low amount of money that was in there, that he threw in money as he handed me the envelope.
Yeah.
So it was just, but it was very nice of them to try to do this fund for me. But that was a point too, where I just realized it was important to be around people in my life who I knew cared about me,
okay.
because I quickly went back to my old
Yeah.
place and I stayed at that place for almost 10 more years, because those were the people who checked up on me. Those were the people who were calling me. Those were the people who showed up at the hospital to see me. Those were my people that I knew actually cared and didn't just give me a $5 bill
Right.
because I had cancer,
Right.
Yeah.
What was I mean, there had to be so many highs and lows going through that. Was there like a theme or a mindset or something that you're like, all right, did you wake up one day and say, all right, we're beating this, or were you trying to figure it out day by day?
I kind of was trying to figure it out day by day, honestly. And it was so weird because I also I also felt like an imposter, and I still struggle with that
All right.
because I never knew when I had cancer, I didn't know I had cancer.
All right.
So all of a sudden, they take out my thyroid, my cancer's gone. I'm cancer free, but I didn't know I had cancer. So it was this weird adjustment to like I had cancer in my body.
Yeah.
So it was just a weird day by day trying to figure that out. And then just with the adjustments of medications. And then when I got pregnant, well, then I was worried down the road that that I would struggle with getting pregnant.
Okay.
Thankfully, that was not an issue. But then I had to adjust my medications to be a normal person when I was pregnant. But then the fear of my thyroid cancer is going to come back. The tumor is going to come back. But then I had the kid, my daughter, and then got my levels jacked back up to be hyperthyroid. So it's just the back and forth battle of every 6 months
Trying to
having to get
keep everything in balance.
yes. Um,
What did recovery post that surgery look like? I mean, was there radiation? You were talking about.
no, there wasn't, and that's why that's why I have imposter syndrome sometimes because I didn't do the radioactive iodine pill.
All right.
You don't do chemo for the
That kind of
thyroid cancer. So it literally was a surgery and it's gone. But I also, and I hate to even like put this out in the universe, but I have the fear every day that it's going to come back somewhere.
Yeah, it's a monster that just
Yep.
hangs out.
And it's like, I don't even want to put that in the universe.
Yeah.
But every time something, and I just recently had something where I was like, oh my gosh, I have a tumor, and it came back negative, but like that constant fear that it's coming back. And also because I didn't get the radioactive iodine treatment. So now I'm nervous that maybe I should have pushed for it just to make sure that nothing was left in my body. But
Yeah.
I do feel comfortable. I found it's so important to find good doctors. I found a new endocrinologist just a year ago, and she is phenomenal. And she has really helped open my eyes to how some other things I was dealing with my old doctor. But she's pretty much, once you hit 20 years, like you're with thyroid cancer, she's like, it's pretty uncommon that it's going to come back there. But it's just, I have the fear of where is it going to come back?
Well,
what part?
Yeah.
Because my body produced it at one point.
Right.
So it could produce it again.
Well, and if you subscribe to Carl Jung at all and the collective unconscious, you've been playing this tape that there's this thing.
I know, and and I just really try not to, because
Yeah.
I'm also a believer that what you manifest and what you put out in the universe and what you keep thinking is going to happen. And I really have to shut it down. And my husband helps me with that. When I get in my head and, oh my gosh, this is cancer or something or this, and he's like, no, it's not. We'll deal with, if down the road it is, we'll deal with it, but shut it off, basically.
Okay.
Just move on. Because we can't even put that in the universe.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I'm just processing. That's a lot to, it almost tempers any joy you have of going, or potentially could. I don't want to put words in your mouth at all, but like, hey, this great thing just happened, whether it's a baby or a job or a move or a marriage or whatever. And then you're going, but does it go away tomorrow? Because it almost did once before.
100%. And that's last fall when I was, not last fall, just a couple months ago. That was last fall. Just a couple months ago when I was waiting for test results, and it kind of life is so funny because you get these reality checks and you want to change your life and you want to do all these things, but then you kind of creep towards how you used to be, and you kind of creep towards, and then you get a reality check again. And so my reality check was in October again. And it just really made me reevaluate what is important in life.
Right.
And again, it's like, I know this. I know it's my kids. I know it's my husband. And I know it's me leaving them a legacy and just being there for them now, present now. but it's such a weird, life is just a weird cyclical thing where I need those little signs that it's like, and it came back negative. So I'm like, okay, God, this is my sign that I will reevaluate what is important in my life. I will spend more time with my kids and my family. I will take better care of I'll eat better. And I'm so bad at that. Just the little
Yeah.
things like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll stop eating all the sugar.
Right. Well, I'm not trying to pull out a silver lining out of a cancer scare, but they're at least it's making you think a certain way.
100%. 100%.
What so we talked like at the beginning of the conversation about your energy.
Yes.
And I know you're someone that comes in and the room's brighter because you showed up and you're instantly getting to work and helping people and always a positive influence on folks. Were you that way prior to?
I think so.
Okay. So
yeah.
that's who you are. It's not
that's my core.
Okay. How did you stay positive? You get a diagnosis.
Yeah.
How long of the time period was it from diagnosis to surgery?
Well, that was the thing. I was never diagnosed. So that was the imposter, I just was going into surgery and I was going to have half my thyroid removed. And then I wake up from surgery and, oh, I'm a cancer survivor. What? Wait, what? I have a tendency, and this is not a good thing, but I have a tendency to push things so far out of my mind that I don't even think about it. And I do think post surgery and post thyroid cancer, especially those 6 months afterwards, it was almost like hibernation.
Yeah.
And not denial, but some sort of denial that like this really even
happened.
Yes, really even happened. But then it was like, yeah, it did happen. And I'm in these thyroid cancer survivor groups and just reading everybody's stories and it's still just all the questions because there's still so many things that I have questions about still to this day that I asked my doctor. Because I just kind of felt like I kind of felt like I had my head in the clouds back in my 20s, mid to late 20s when all this was happening. And I think right after the surgery, it's like the graphic of having the ostrich with its head in the sand. I kind of feel like that was me post. It's like putting my head in the sand and then coming out and being like, what the heck just happened? And then dealing with it.
Yeah.
And then just dealing with, I really learned I can't even credit the thyroid cancer to this. Just, I've really learned in the last few years to really just feel what you're feeling instead of stuffing it, which was always hard for me. And maybe that's why I had cancer because I stuffed emotions a lot. And so I've really learned it's okay to feel the things I'm feeling and just just feel it and move on.
Yeah.
And just, okay, I felt it. Let's move on. So I've really been trying to focus on that lately.
I think that's impactful. It's powerful. I think a lot of us, what we tend to do, and this is my completely uneducated self-diagnosis of what I do, is I can make it through about anything provided it doesn't affect my wife and children, right? My family, then it's a hard stop.
Yes.
What do we need to do to fix it?
Let me take it. I'll take it away from you guys.
Right.
Yes.
If it's my father, the truest bit of advice I've ever received in my entire life was, we had just had Kenzie, my oldest, and he said, "You'll find out that the hardest thing about being a parent is you can't suffer for your children."
Oh.
And I thought about that, and then like a day and a half later, it hit me, and I was like, "Oh, just you know what I mean?"
Yes.
Floored by kind of that thing. So everything else I can compartmentalize. Like crazy, horrible, whatever. I just pack it up, throw it in this imaginary backpack, and I just keep marching along, right?
Yes.
And what happened to me is one day I woke up to start marching, and that imaginary backpack was like 800 pounds.
Yes.
I couldn't go anymore.
Yes.
I had to unpack that. And so I really think what you're talking about, a ton of people can, like, there's bells going off, right?
Yes.
Like, okay, I can more than relate to that. So going through that experience, and the reoccurring experience of
Yeah.
this, where do you feel like you have more zest for life, or you have a higher
Tolerance.
tolerance, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Or maybe even a little bit more purpose to have that energy. How do you keep that up?
I work out a lot.
All right.
Honestly, it is hard. I mean, it's really hard. And the older I get, the harder it is. I really just have a set thing. I work out every day at 5 o'clock in the morning. And if I don't work out, then I don't have the energy. But that's what keeps me, it's my rituals in the morning.
Okay.
And waking up at 4 a.m. and I'm the only one awake. That's the only time in the entire day that it's just me. And that's when I do my reading or do my, like my Bible verses. That's when I do that. And then I go work out at the gym. So mornings that I don't do that, it's harder. So that's definitely, it keeps me sane. It honestly does. And I know it's good for me. I know working out is good for me. But it really is the sanity part that has kept, that's why I keep working out too every morning.
You've said a couple things that I think are real empowering. At some point you decided that you were going to own your health.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of alluded to that when you would move or things would change. You would go find another doctor that would, basically get in the trenches with you and help you
Yes.
figure stuff
Yes.
out. So that's obviously one important component. The second really important component is what you're doing on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Because kids are only children from 9 to 5, and then from
Yes.
5 to 10, they're just well-mannered and they read books and color, right? They never
Yes.
need anything from mom or
Never
dad.
need mom.
But no, how let's talk about that morning routine. How did you come across that? Was it in a book, a lecture, a video? Is it something you'd always done being a farm kid?
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
Well, the working out itself, that's always been a part of me.
Shot put.
Shot put, volleyball, yeah, softball. I definitely
Yeah.
I did go through a period after my son that I didn't work out for a couple years. And I was I think I got put on antidepressants. I was really overweight. My hormones were all out of whack. And it was that, and I knew I needed to work out and I knew it was good for my mental health and I knew it was good for my body, but it was just getting there and just starting is the hardest.
Yeah.
And so then it was right before COVID that I do Orange Theory is my
All right.
go-to. And I found that right before COVID. And that's when I started getting into the ritual. And I knew my biggest thing, I wanted to be around for my kids. And I grew up and I was 23. My mom had a stroke at age 51 that should have killed her. She's still alive, but she's handicapped. Her left arm is paralyzed. And then my dad died of cancer at 72. So I grew up with not the healthiest parents. And so my mom having the stroke at age 51, when I was 23, she was my best friend. And so that changed after the stroke. And that I didn't want to do that for my kids. I didn't want to do that to my kids. I didn't want to leave them unwillingly because of something I chose. I didn't want to choose to not work out. I didn't want to. She had high blood pressure and she knew about it for 18 years and didn't take care of it. So there were things she could have done preventatively to still be around and still be the mom that we knew.
All right.
So that was my driving force once I had kids and once I got through the depression and the hormones and all that. That's when I found Orange Theory and I was like, I just want to be here for my kids. I don't want to do that to them. I don't want to do that to my husband. I don't want to do that. So I need to take control of my health, and physically that is something I can control. The eating I'm still working on. But physically, that is something I can do to help ensure that I'm here for my kids past a certain age and that I will get to see them married and having kids and I'll get to see my grandkids.
All right.
So
that's a pretty powerful why.
Yeah.
What did it take for you to have that to get started, to have that first morning where the alarm went off at 4 and instead of throwing it
Mhm.
or snoozing it for, 15, 20 times, was there a catalyst that said, "Oh gosh, I gotta do this. I gotta start now," or did you just find the internal strength and say, "All right, today's day one."
Found the internal strength. There wasn't a catalyst. I mean, that was my dad passed when I was pregnant with my son, and so then at that whole year post, that's when I was struggling with the depression and everything. So that was when I found the internal strength to this, I got to do this, or I'm going to end up like my mother.
Yeah.
I'm going to end up having a heart attack or a stroke. Cancer's going to come back. And that's something that I didn't want to regret. I didn't want to, have a stroke. And I don't know cognitively if I would even recognize that, but just knowing that I could have done something to prevent it. It was hard getting up, and it took a good 2 weeks. I mean, that alarm would go off, and I had to sign up for the class the night before, and I would lose $12 if I didn't go, and I will not lose $12. So,
Okay.
so that forced me to get up and
Yeah.
go. And then I got into a routine, and now I get up even when I want to sleep, and I get up at 4.
So having a little, even if it's only $12, having
Yeah.
a little skin in the game.
Yes, it makes me, I'm not giving up $12. They already pay enough. I'm not going to give them an extra $12.
So your routine starts off, well, I don't know if it starts off, but you're getting up and you're exercising.
Mhm.
What else do you have in your morning routine?
It's really just, I have a little Bible app on my phone.
All right.
So I read the daily Bible. And now I have this, I feel like the older I get, my brain isn't syn- synapsing, doing all the things. So I have this brain challenge game on my phone that I play every day to help my brain
Cognitive.
cognitively improve
Okay.
and not. But yeah, I don't have a ton. I mean, it's really just those couple things. Um, I was into mantras for a while, kind of fell off that, but I've definitely the Bible verses and now the game.
Let's talk about Bible verses.
Yeah.
Going through this and starting a family and your father passing and cancer and moving from New York to Denver, all these things. Did faith play a consistent role in that for you, or is it something you found later? Or
It's something that I've been in and out of.
okay,
I grew up Presbyterian. I grew up not liking church.
okay,
I grew up feeling forced to go to church. Grew up feeling scared. Grew up feeling not good enough. Um, and so as soon as my parents as a little girl stopped making us go, I didn't go. And then I went to college and I found a church I really liked there, that I actually really loved. And that was towards the end, like the last couple years of my college career. Then I moved to New York City, went to a couple churches, didn't find anything that I loved, moved here and found a church. It was actually when I met my husband, because lived here for about 6 years before I met my husband. And when I knew we were getting married and starting a family, I was very in and out. I say I was very in and out. I believe in God, and I still
yeah,
know Jesus. I was never doubting that. It was just my journey to get to where I'm at. And then when I knew I was going to have a family, I knew I wanted my kids to go to heaven
right,
and be a
yeah,
believer, and I'm going to be in heaven one day, and I want them to be in heaven with me. So it was important for me to find a church, and my husband and I church shopped before we got married because we wanted to do premarital counseling.
yeah.
And so now we found Red Rocks, and we've been going to Red Rocks Church for about 14 years now.
That's awesome.
So it definitely gives me a perspective that there's so many, life is bigger than us.
Right.
And it gets me out of my head that
Yeah.
there's way more in life than just me and my problems and my family, that there's a bigger entity. And yeah.
I think sometimes that's a perception it's easy to not have that perception, right?
Yes. Yes.
I think when things get scary or dark,
Oof.
we think it's us against the world
Yep.
instead of
I'm on my own
it's just
island. Yeah.
our little part of the world.
Uh-huh. Yep.
And no, that can get heavy.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
talking to somebody we both know a couple weeks ago, and just part of the conversation, it just naturally came out that there's a difference between being lonely and being alone.
Mm. Yes.
And if we get out of our own heads, we can be lonely, but to know that we're not alone. And
Yes.
you referred
Yeah.
to it a couple times in our conversation, your people.
Yes.
You went to your people, whether it was a restaurant
Yep. Yep.
or family members or friends. And
Yep.
so, especially this time of year, it's hard for a
Well,
lot of
this time of
folks.
year and COVID really brought it out too. It's like COVID made people feel either alone or lonely. And it really pushed people away, which I hated. But it really shine a light on that.
Let's talk about COVID.
PTSD.
Yeah, right. What did COVID look
Oh
like
my
for your
gosh.
family?
It was insane. So I work full time and I'm in sales. So my kids were also in elementary school. So we became a teacher as well. So it was just my daughter at the time was a second grader and my son was in pre-K. That was when COVID first hit. But then when the fall of 2020 came and my son was starting kindergarten in 2020 with masks and my daughter with masks, and it was so hard. I remember my kids crying because they just didn't understand why we couldn't go eat in McDonald's. Like literally they wanted to go inside McDonald's to eat. They didn't want to take it to go. They just didn't understand. And they started crying. And I remember driving and I started crying and I call my husband. I go, and he just kind of was like, oh, it's fine. Like what he kind of poo-poos things. But I'm like, I don't even understand what's going on though. So
Yeah.
I can't be upset with them because they don't know what's going on. I don't even understand what's going on with the world right now. It was a scary time. And just having to balance working full time. I'm also sales. So I was really only told to work from home for 2 weeks. And then if we can be in the office to help out, you better be in the office to help out. But they were really great they knew we had kids. So just they were like, if there's a day you need to work from home, you need to like teach your kids, just let us know where you're at, just so we know you're good. So it was very um, just it was a lot.
Yeah.
And I never want to go back to that. It literally is like PTSD.
Well, and it almost ran in sprints. Like,
Mhm.
here's what we're doing the next 2 weeks. We'll
Yep.
let you know more then.
Yep.
And next thing you know, you're looking back
Yep.
3-4 months and you're like, I haven't made a decision because I haven't had information to make a decision
Right.
or
Yes.
And the other thing I noticed too, I thought was interesting is some people got really good at hunkering down and they're like,
Mhm.
we're good.
Yeah.
I'm A-okay at home.
Yeah.
And other people got cabin fever. And, the business we're both in, I mean, in the snap of a finger,
Yeah.
a house went from
Yes.
where you ate and slept most nights, right?
To like
To the schoolroom.
your office, your business,
everything.
yes, everything. Yes.
And then to manage little ones. My children were in high school.
Yeah.
And I remember I opened my youngest Grace, I opened her door and she was in sweatpants sitting in a bed with a laptop. And I said, what are you doing? And she's like, taking my gym class, Dad. And I was like,
what?
you know what I mean?
Yes,
You're just like,
yes,
all right, I guess
yes.
this is where we're at. I think we're going to be unpacking this one.
I
for
do too.
A generation.
And
right?
it was just so hard because my son started kindergarten and his first 2 months was Zoom as a kindergartner, as a 5-year-old boy. And I just remember one morning getting him breakfast and I was like, okay. And they had him logged on from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day.
Yeah.
I couldn't even handle Zoom from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day. How was my 5-year-old boy supposed to do this? And we were so worried about him. The one particular morning, he wouldn't get dressed. He didn't want to eat. And he just laid down and started crying. And he goes, Mom, I hate school. And I was like, oh, I was like, buddy, I was like, I get it. But I promise it won't be like this the rest of your life. It won't be like this forever. So the minute they were able to get back in school, even though he had to wear masks, he just blossomed. And I was so thankful. And I know I talked to so many parents who had their kids at different ages during COVID, and there's not one age that's better than the other.
Right.
I mean, it really, like, everybody dealt with their own crap depending on what age, but I am very thankful my kids were younger because they were more resilient. And I have seen some fallout of teenagers post-COVID, older teenagers post-COVID, and the depression and the anxiety that has set in. And thank God my kids, I feel like, were young enough that they didn't really get what was going on.
Okay.
So I'm very thankful.
Right.
So that's,
And,
yes.
until they're in college and they read the
Yeah,
books.
totally.
So, right.
And it's in the
Like,
history books. And
yeah.
you're like, wait a minute, I remember wearing those masks.
Well, just hearing you speak, I was talking to my dad like the last couple weeks, and we were talking about Cold War stuff and everything else, and he's like, "Yeah, I remember at school it was normal for us
Mm-hmm.
to crawl underneath our desk in case there was a nuclear explosion or
Yeah.
attack,
Yeah.
and so I'm not. It's those weird things that when you look back and you're like, wait, how the heck was that normal?
Yeah.
Why would we
Yeah.
do that?
Yeah.
And so I think each generation, maybe not are you an Xer, Gen X?
Yes, technically.
Okay, all right.
There's a new term that I've learned that I really am, that I identify more with.
I'm a little
I think it's like
scared.
Zennial or something
Oh,
like that. It's
okay,
like,
that's kind of cool.
weird.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because I don't really
right there.
identify as a millennial or a Gen Xer. So yeah.
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 So I'm just interested. I'm sure there's something in my childhood that we did because of whatever big
Right.
threat was out
Right.
there that I didn't realize wasn't normal.
Right. Well, and I look back, I mean, I've been part of some crazy things. One of my closers was like, I can't hang out with you because you have some really bad luck. But I lived in New York City during 9/11 and I saw the second plane hit. And so I've lived that piece of history and I've
Yeah.
lived COVID. So it's just these weird things. And I'm like, okay, God, I don't need to be living any of these anymore. Like you can let up a little bit. So it's
Is
just,
that off? Is
yeah,
that, can I ask you about
yeah.
that?
I was on a commercial audition that day and
All right.
I remember exactly what I was wearing and what shoes I was wearing. And I was on a bus. The commercial audition was in New Jersey. So I was on a bus and we went through the Lincoln Tunnel right around 8:30, 8:40, whenever. And I remember we came up out of this tunnel and the bus got stopped. And I was up front sitting by the bus driver. And someone got on and said something to the bus driver. And he kind of was like, he had this look, and I was like, what happened? And he's like, someone flew into the World Trade Center. And so naive and gullible. That's me. I was like, oh my gosh, how did someone accidentally fly into the tower? And I'll never forget. And I think this is when I grew up. He's like, he looks at me and he goes, oh, sweetie, this wasn't an accident. And I was like, what? And so then we were sitting there because Jersey, we were right across from we were just separated by the river. And so we saw the second plane hit. Bus started going. I get to the commercial audition and there were only 4 of us actors who made it to the audition because by then they had shut down all bridges and tunnels. I still auditioned. I was the first one to audition. I'm very good at putting stuff just off and not thinking about things. And so we all auditioned, but we couldn't get back that night and no one could get a hold of us. That was, again, I'm dating myself. So cell phones were a newer thing and cell phone towers couldn't handle the capacity of everybody calling into New York City to check on their loved ones. But so the 4 of us actors that I didn't know who were strangers got a hotel room in the town we were in. And we stayed in this hotel room and watched the TV all night long and just watched the news and cried and my parents couldn't get a hold of me. So then stayed the night, but obviously didn't sleep a wink that night. The next morning, they started opening bridges and tunnels slowly. So the first bridge to open was up in New York State.
All right.
So one of the guy's dads lived in Queens. And so he had a car and he came up around on the bridge, came down around in New Jersey, picked us all up, took us back around. And I got back to, it was Queens or Long Island. I don't remember, but I took the Long Island Railroad. So it must have been Long Island. So took the Long Island Railroad back into 34th Street. Came out, and I'm not even kidding you. It's like seeing those movies, like the post-apocalyptic movies. And I walked out of the subway on 34th Street where Macy's is and all of that. I don't know if you've been to Madison Square Garden, that whole area. No one. There was no one around. I was like, okay. So then they started opening subways. So I got back up to my apartment because I lived in Manhattan, very northern edge. My roommates, I finally got a hold of them the next morning. So we knew each other was safe. My roommate was actually on jury duty down there that morning and she had to run. She was one that she's still very scarred about that because she had to run and she lost her shoes and she like ducked around a building and thought that was going to save her. And so the next day, my mom at the time, this was pre-stroke, my mom was making connections. There was another girl from Nebraska who had grown up 15 minutes from me. So her and my mom were connecting and got us hooked up, and they found the last car rental at LaGuardia Airport, and we drove home 2 days after. And I went into I worked in Times Square then as a server at Planet Hollywood. And I went in, and they had just evacuated Times Square because there were bomb threats everywhere.
Yeah.
And I walked in, and I saw my manager sitting there. Just Planet Hollywood had these TVs just everywhere, and she's just sitting there, zombie. And I just told her, I was like, Jill, I'm leaving. I'm going to go back to Nebraska, and I don't know if I'm coming back, because that point I didn't know. And she just didn't even look at me, and she says, okay. I was like, are you okay? And she said, I have friends in the tower that I haven't heard from. And I still to this day don't, because she left. Like I went home for a month and then came back and she was gone. But we drove the next 2 days. I got in a car with a stranger, and we just drove back to Nebraska. And then it was such a weird feeling for me, because I felt like I was deserting the city. I had this weird prideful thing about it, that I felt like I ran away, and I shouldn't have run away. And so the day I decided to go back, the day that my mom put me on the airplane in Omaha to fly back to LaGuardia, was the day that the US declared war. And I just remember my mom crying, and she's like, what am I doing? I'm sending you back there. And I'm like, Mom, I can't like pause my life. I can't quit my life because of this. And she hugged me goodbye, and I went back to New York for probably about 2 more years.
Okay.
So yeah.
No, it's
crazy stuff.
No, the sentence that you grew up on a bus, like that was the moment where you went.
It was a child to holy crap.
Yeah.
I had no idea there was terrorists. I had no idea this was even a thing. And I had no idea there was such evil in the world to actually do that purposefully.
Yeah.
And that was, I'll just never forget. Oh, sweetie, this was no accident. Yeah. Yeah.
Golly. That's no, and then your trip back.
Yeah.
No, I don't think you could I don't think you're allowed to beat yourself up with the imposter syndrome on thyroid cancer, or that you gave up on New York City. I think the post-apocalyptic, like,
never forget it.
2 hours ago,
Yep.
this was normal.
Yep.
And now it is, and it's never going to be again.
Yep.
Because it's going to be immemorialized this way or that way, or I mean that date.
Mm-hmm.
That date is going to be with us
Yep.
for forever, and has weight.
Well, and it's that whole, where were you when this happened?
Yeah.
That's, where were you when JFK got shot? Where were you when 9/11 happened? Just
Right.
Where were you when you first heard that COVID, we were shutting the world down?
Yeah.
So there's just been a lot. Yes.
So you've got 2 of those. I don't think you knew where you were when Kennedy got shot.
No, I wasn't.
All right, let's just say 2's enough for a lifetime.
My parents' eye.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. So you've been through some pretty heavy stuff, right?
Yes.
And I'm sure there's more.
Yes.
How the heck do you show up every day with a servant's heart, wanting to better people?
That is a great question. I mean,
and if we figure it out and it makes you not do that anymore, I don't. That's my biggest fear right now. That's when
I'm
I grew up.
reevaluating my life, and I'm like, I'm done.
I grew up a second time. I'm now going to hold up and
I'm done with everything. I mean, it really just, I keep circling back to, you only have one life.
Yeah.
And when things like that happen, when 9/11 happens, COVID happens, intruders break in our house, that's another thing that happened. You only have one life.
Yeah.
And I can't waste time dwelling on what could have been, or dwelling on, oh, poor pity me. Oh, woe is me. I mean, I have 2 kids that I also need to raise, but I also want to be a positive example. I don't want them to be victims. I don't want them to have something bad happen to them and have them ruin their life.
Yeah.
Because of that one thing. Because you're going to have a lot of stuff that's thrown at you.
Yeah.
So that's very important to me. to show my resilience and to show that I wake up. And not only do I wake up, but I wake up with a smile and I wake up like, you know what? Even if I have a tough day ahead of me, it is what it is. I'm going to put my head down and work. And by the end of the day, I'm going to come home and I'm still coming home to you guys. And that's what's important to me, to set that example.
That's powerful. That's a lot of purpose in that.
Yeah.
I think it's real easy to, or a lot of people maybe don't have purpose.
It is. I mean, it is. And it is easy. It's hard to make that choice every day. It's
Right.
easier to like, oh, I'm just going to feel sorry for myself. And, you
Yeah.
know, it's just, that's easier to do than not.
I heard this, I don't know if it's a quote or just one of the gazillion memes we all consume now, but it says, congratulations, you've survived 100% of your worst days ever.
Yes, I've seen that before.
And for whatever reason, that just talks to me because it's like, all right, the sun's gonna set, and then but it's still gonna rise again the next day.
Yep.
And I love how you beat it to rising by getting up at 4 a.m. Do you in your morning prep and the routine that you've built for yourself, do you, I mean, if you wanted to, you could basically design the day you're choosing to have, being it is your one life that you are consciously living, right?
Yep.
Do you find yourself doing that? This is how I'm going to own this day, or?
Yes, especially days that I know I have a lot going on, or I have to teach a class, or I have to perform.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I have to kind of coach myself
All right.
up to that, as opposed to other days where I'm just having a coffee or a lunch or something, you know, where it's a little less putting myself out there.
Okay.
I have to, mentally prepare. I mean, I remember in volleyball, I remember doing that before volleyball games in high school. Every night, my coach was, you need to mentally prepare and you need to mentally see yourself getting dressed, see yourself stretching, see yourself warming up, see yourself playing, see all those things. So on nights that I have before I do big things, I do that. Like I had worked with you guys. It's on something. And the night before I didn't really sleep because I was so nervous, but it was like, I just mentally had to put myself there and prepare.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There was an interesting study that I cannot quote, but I think it had to do with free throw shots. And so they divided it up into a couple different groups, and like group A, it was like you're going to do 100 free throws a day. Group B, you're going to mentally do 100 free throws a day. And group C, just you're not going to do 3 free throws a day. So they track these different groups, and the people that, and I'm messing these numbers up, but they're ballpark correct, I think. Group A that were physically doing it increased their likelihood by like 24%.
Okay.
The group C that just didn't do it stayed on par. They were awful going into it. They were, congratulations, you're awful getting out of this. But the middle group that just did the mental exercise, didn't touch a ball, but just mentally shot it, it was something like 23%.
Yeah.
So it was like on par with physically doing it. Yeah. So,
well, and it goes back to how at the beginning, I said that I completely believe in what you put out there is what manifests.
Yeah.
And so that study right there just shows the mental game is almost more important than the physical.
I think so.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and you know, manifestation or law of attraction or this other stuff. I think that we exist at a certain vibration that we've allowed ourselves to get to, right?
Yeah.
And you know, like vibrations attract other like
vibrations,
right?
yes.
And there's ways to increase our vibration, and also the world is going to make sure it can decrease it, right?
Yes.
So physical activity, or you know, people practicing gratitude first thing in the morning can be some of the most powerful things people could do, because it's impossible to be pissed off or angry if you're being grateful, right? It's
very
you just
true.
can't do it.
No, it's
true.
true.
So we've talked about all this incredible, I'm going to say internal strength you found.
Yes.
What are sources of external strength that let you stand up the way you stand up?
Oh gosh, what? Give me an example.
Are there people that you look up to, or they're an author or a speaker, or just what inspires you to keep going?
Yes. I get this question a lot, and I feel bad that I don't have just one person or these mentors. I really do feel like I did a lot of life by myself.
Okay.
So I didn't look up. I love books and I love authors, but I don't have a certain one. I mean, it just goes back to why am I doing what's my why? And it's my kids and
All
my
right.
husband. I mean, really, there's not a set person that I want to thank. Like if I had to accept an Oscar, I wouldn't sit here and, oh, I thank my third grade teacher.
Well, you got to thank your agent, right?
Yeah.
Your
Well, yeah.
agent,
I
your
mean that.
manager.
Yeah.
But
I
other
mean,
than
come
that,
on.
yeah. No, I mean, I think it's incredible because so many people have bought in to a system from a guru.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think it's pretty amazing to, through experience
Yes.
and willpower,
Yeah.
kind of figure out no one knows you better than you.
Right. And I do believe, I am a firm believer that people come into your life for a reason. So I
Okay.
definitely have people in my life, salt and peppered in and out of my life, that have come in at certain points that have been pivotal.
Okay.
But I wouldn't sit here and say there's one big person.
Right.
You know what
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
There's a lot of many people. I don't want to say little people because that sounds awful.
No,
Many
I
people.
know exactly
They're
what you're
not little
saying.
people. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's amazing. If you were to look back at 20-year-old Shanna, what would you tell her about what's ahead of her, or what advice would you give her?
I was so naive and gullible. I also would tell her to calm down and enjoy life because such an overachiever, and I was, especially after college and then mid to late 20s, I grew up on a farm in Nebraska and all my friends were married at age 22, 23. And I just was this like, I have to get married. I have to start a family. I have to do all these things. I'm very grateful I waited to find my husband when I was older. I'm glad I didn't settle. I'm glad I didn't marry anybody. But I was so wrapped up in that
Yeah.
that I kind of, some of my best times in my 20s, I kind of lost because I was so focused on wanting to find the right guy and
Right.
get married, which I just, again, no disrespect to my husband, but I should have just enjoyed
Right.
not
No.
having him. Like
Mm-hmm.
and I tell my kids, and they get so like, oh, I want to do this. I want to be this one day. I can't wait to do this. I can't wait for this to be over. I'm like, you need to enjoy it now.
Yeah.
Because once it's over and once you're out of school or out of the home, you're going to have to pay bills. You can't look back. Like you're never going to get that back.
Yeah.
And so that 20-year-old me who was pretty much just finishing college and moving to New York City by myself, like calm down and enjoy every day. Like I look back and I love my time in New York, and that is where I feel like I grew up the most. But I don't have a lot of regrets, but I just wish I would have enjoyed it more.
Okay, that's fair. I like how, I think a lot of people, maybe more my generation, Gen X, at that point in time, you graduated high school, you went to college, you got a job, or if you weren't smart, you went to a trade school,
right,
or you joined the military and stuff like that. What I love about your story is it exemplifies there's no one right way to do it.
Right. And I wanted to do the right way. I wanted to do
It's the
check this box, checks this box.
Right.
Like, no, like I didn't, but I wanted to.
Do you think there's a sense of pride in you that you didn't?
Yes.
You ended up rebelling against that?
Yes. I remember one year I was in 7 different weddings when I was 23 years old.
Oh, gosh.
And I lived in New York, so I kept flying back
Right.
to be bridesmaids in these weddings. And at the time,
did you have to get a new dress for each and every one?
Oh,
of course.
yes,
Okay.
Of course. And at the time, I was so bummed and sad because, oh, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. That's like literally what I would say.
Yeah.
And now I look back, I'm like, oh my gosh, you're lucky, because some of those weddings, my friends aren't together anymore. They got divorced. And so it's just like, you were so lucky to just be able to be the single one at the weddings, be the single one to go live in New York and not have to answer to a spouse or kids.
Or the debt that comes along with starting a family.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yes.
Right.
So
yeah. Okay. That's amazing. No, I want to talk more about your professional prowess.
Okay.
Right. What you're doing now and how you view what you do now is empowering and helping people. Your work with a couple different organizations, one which I know
Mhm.
you're a leader in,
Yep.
and that kind of empowerment and stuff. So, um, what we've talked about your energy, all the other great stuff we know about you. What's the thing that makes it easier for you to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get your day started that you're doing right now from a professional standpoint? What do you wake up and you're like, you know what, I'm going to knock this out of the park because it makes me a better mom, a wife, legacy you had
So
talked about
what do I
earlier.
do now
Yeah.
that makes me
What's,
wake up and knock it out of the park?
yeah. What's giving you the purpose or the energy? What's driving you to keep this
It's
going?
honestly the people I meet.
Okay.
I love meeting new people and I love establishing relationships with them. And I love to help them in their real estate career. I love to help them if they find listings. I just love to help them. I love new agents.
Okay.
And I love when a new agent gets their first listing. And that's not that I don't like older agents, but that to me is so fun. And if I had any help in that, that to me is so great. And really it's just meeting with an agent, meeting with someone and getting to know them, but also getting to know their strengths and helping them identify their strengths and using those strengths for their business.
Okay.
And I always tell agents, I'm like, because they're like, oh, I should be doing this. Oh, I should be door knocking. Oh, I should be cold calling. I'm like, who says? Like, do you like to door knock? No. Well, then don't door knock. Like
Right.
literally. So what do you like to do? So let's plan out this is what you should be doing. Because I was like, people are going to know that you're a phony if you don't like to cold call, if you don't like to door knock. So take that off the plate and do. And I like to help them figure out what that is.
That's
And I
amazing.
can tell, like, sometimes I'm like, oh, you like to be around people. You like big groups. Have you thought of like starting like events and networking and neighborhood stuff and HOA, get it on the board, just
Yeah.
different things?
Have you ever stopped to think about the act of helping those people find their stride? I mean, that's life changing for people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's amazing. What kind of multiplier does that potentially have out there?
For
Are
sure.
you doing it consciously, or is that what you're normally driven to?
It's just what I'm normally driven to.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Before I started at my company, I didn't even know what I was getting into, to be honest with you. I've been with Land Title for over 5 years now, and I was a manager at Starbucks for almost 5 years before. And my boss came in on my last day at Starbucks and he brought me this little plant. And he sits me down and we have coffee together. And he's like, "No, what are you going to do?" And I was like, "Jeff, I don't even know. I really don't know, but I'm told that I'm going to be working with people and blah, blah, blah." And he just goes, "You're going to be so good at that." Cause he's like, "You're just so good with people." And I
Yeah.
was like, I'll just never forget him saying that. Like
Yeah.
and I had a past boss at my steakhouse. I got promoted very early on to be a general manager at the steakhouse. Restaurants are notoriously male driven for general managers and managers in general. And a general manager position opened up. I hadn't even been a kitchen manager for a full year, which is unheard of. And I got promoted to be the general manager. And I remember sitting with that boss and going, I'll do this, but I have no idea what I'm doing. And he's like, "I don't care." He's like, "You're good with people. I can teach you the rest."
Okay.
And so those two things from those bosses I've
Yeah.
taken and I'm like, okay, I might not know this about title. I might not know this, but guess what? I'm good with people and I'll figure it out.
Okay.
So that's kind of the mantra. I'm like, I'm good with people. I can do this.
Was it that old Saturday Night Live skit?
I
Stuart Smalley.
it's like, it's the
Gosh
gosh darn it, people like me. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Are you a good swimmer?
I used to be. I have a
Alright.
bad shoulder now. So yeah.
No, it just your stories keep going, and then they threw me in the deep end.
Oh,
And because I was a good swimmer, i.e., I really liked people,
yes,
I won the gold.
and I felt like that when I got into the outside sales position 6 months or earlier than expected.
Yeah.
As a position opened up. And I'm like, okay, I don't really know what I'm doing. Here we go. And drinking water from a fire hose.
Right.
And I just have that repeated theme in my life
All right.
that I get thrown into things because people believe in me. And I'm like, great. Well, I'm going to believe in myself. And if not, I'm going to act like it. Good thing I have a degree in theater.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm going to act like I know what I'm doing until I really figure it out.
Okay.
So yes, getting thrown in the deep end a lot in my life.
So your natural ability to because you and I hit it off out of the gate,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And I think the world of you.
Oh, thank you. Likewise.
She has to say that because she's on the podcast. Do you find it hard in order to really bond and meet people at that level? You're putting a lot of your real self out there,
Mhm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Have you gotten good to where you know how to guard yourself in a
Mm-mm.
particular way?
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So a lot of
That's
times,
something I need to work on, actually.
and I know
Yes,
I'm the same way.
yeah, when I meet someone, I'm all in. I put myself out there. I am loyal to a fault. And so this job has made me, there was one point where I lost some clients because of something that had happened in our industry. And I thought they were loyal to me and they weren't. And that was a big pill to swallow.
Yeah.
And then I literally just had to go, you know what? It's the industry. It's not me.
Yeah.
Because I take things personally.
Oh, me too.
And so I'm like, what did I do? Oh my gosh. And it crushed me. I remember for days during the holidays, like between Christmas and New Year's, there was one client that I'm like, I cannot believe this. I am like, that was heartbreaking. And now I look back on them like, okay, but that was like my first, like, it's fine. It's sales. It's our industry. Like it's fine. Just yes.
I have to pull myself out of that
Yeah,
pretty regularly too and go, wait a minute, Scott.
totally.
Were you really arrogant enough to think
Yeah.
that you're the reason and not
Yes.
providing for their families or paychecks
Yeah.
or opportunities or what, And so, there you can shrug it off and yeah, it is part of the industry.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like, all right, well, what did I learn from that? And how can I be so valuable
Yep.
that maybe there's a conversation that happens before someone
Right.
makes a move
Right.
or
Right.
goes against the grain or whatever that looks like.
Right.
And so I've had to, because I'm super old now, figure out how to work those, how to kind of conduct a blameless autopsy, if you're familiar with the book Good to Great, and kind of deconstruct that a little bit and cut the emotion out.
Yes.
But the emotion still creeps in.
Yes.
It's
100%.
kind of how we're wired, but
Yes.
I think it gets a little easier.
It does. And it's just, again, going back to what you said, how can I be so arrogant to think that they're just going to stay because of me? There's bigger things in life.
It's that perception
It's
of
like, get over yourself. This isn't about you.
Yeah.
Just let it go. And that was new sales rep. And now I've been in this for almost over 5 years. So I do feel a little more like,
you're all jaded and hateful.
I am, I'm jaded, but it's a little easier just to let it roll off my back now.
It is.
Than it was. And when new sales reps shadow me and I talk about things, I talk about that. I was like, you can't take it personal.
I think there's an opposite side of that coin too, where through kind of defining that arrogance, how could I expect? It lets people go easier now because you're like, well, it's about them.
Totally.
It's not about me. They have something going on in their lives or a change so it's about them. So let me know.
Yes.
I'll love you from afar now. Let me know how I can help. And hopefully we cross paths later. So
100%.
It's a little bit of a growth play I think there too.
Yep.
Oh, but yeah. So you're also involved with a group.
Yes.
That's, I would say, around empowering female business leaders and female businesses.
Yes. The Women's Council of Realtors. We are the North Metro Denver chapter.
Okay.
And I've been involved, honestly, since I got thrown in the industry as well.
Okay.
My predecessor had been in it. So I got put in because I was land title and I took her position and again, didn't know what I was getting involved with.
Right.
Was with them for a couple months, then got asked to be voluntold to be put on the board.
Yeah. Right.
And I was director of membership. And again, I'm like, what is this? What am I doing? But it's a really great group of women. And every year since I've been a part of it, I just feel like the growth keeps happening more every year.
All right.
And growth, it's not just women. I mean, there are men realtors in it. It's a networking group and there's affiliates, like we call them strategic partners. So Keller Williams is a strategic partner, land title is, so title companies, lenders, real estate brokerages, but it's really a place to empower women leaders, really. And like I said, no discrimination towards men.
No.
But it is, like, there's some statistic out there that most real estate brokerages are owned by men. And so how do we nurture the women and help them see their value and become leaders in our industry, because we need more. We
Yeah.
need more of us. And so that's been a fun, like I said, this I was on the board this last year and I'm going to be on the board next year. And each year I keep saying, I'm like, next year's going to be so great. And then I get more excited for the next year. And this next year for 2024 is so great. We already have so many great strategic partners,
Okay.
new ones that are signed on. We've got great new realtors joining. And the energy is going to be so exciting and so different than it has been in the past. So we're really looking forward to it. So
You said something that lights me up, and it's energy, because
yes.
energy and vibe,
Yep.
it's hard to quantify or
Yep.
define, but you know when it's there,
Yes.
and you damn sure know when it's not.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And I just think, due to personality and your DNA,
Mhm.
you're wired to bring that vibe where you're
Yes.
going.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And it's been fun to see some of the partners I brought on, some of my realtor partners and some of my lender partners. And I'm shooting texts to the other membership. I'm like, these people are going to sign. These people are going to sign. And they're like, you're amazing. And I'm like, it's just so fun for me because I
Right.
just love to bring on great people.
Yeah.
And I love to bring on people who are going to bring great things out of great people. So
Yeah.
it's like we all have something to learn from each other.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, this person is amazing. You need to meet her and she can help you with this. And so I just love people, and I love bringing great people to meet other great people.
Yeah.
So, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And those meetings bring greatness out of others
Mhm.
or situations. And
Well, and
um,
I've talked about too, I'm in this industry. I've never really felt this until I got in the real estate industry. I'm just a believer that there's enough out there. There's enough business for everybody. And I'm friends with my competitors. I'm not one that's like, oh, you know
Yeah.
that. It just coming from a place of abundance
Okay.
instead of scarcity. And
Okay.
that's how I feel. I do meet client agents who don't come from that space. And so they're like, wait, you want me to come network with other realtors? Wait, what? So that's just such a weird concept to me, because I'm like, of course you want to meet this person, because you could be on the other side of the closing table with this person one day.
Right.
And don't you want to have a relationship with them? Or you could put an offer in and that person, your offer, you have a better chance of getting that offer because you have a relationship with them. So just, again, I'm just abundance mindset is really, really huge for me in this industry.
All right. I
Yep.
love that. I
Yep.
love it. One of the other things too is I think, well, we run a 250 person organization
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
and that abundance mindset and that energy, it's almost like, and I'm not getting someone to wake up to figure out that activities equal results,
Mhm.
and you get to design what those activities look like.
Yeah.
Kind of going back to
Yeah.
what we were talking about, working with newer agents and stuff. Sometimes that light goes off, like it's on. The switch flipped. Hey,
Yeah.
we're here, we're going.
Yep. Yep.
And other times you're like, hey, can you see me? I'm gonna open the door so a little light gets through,
Yeah.
No, that's it. But I'm gonna just sum up a little bit of what we talked about. I
Yeah.
think you put the point on it, and that's that abundant mindset.
Yes.
And no, I appreciate knowing you.
Yes.
I
Thank
think
you.
your positivity and energy is infectious,
Thank
and we're just super stoked to have you on the show today.
Well,
And
thank you. This has been
and have you as
amazing.
a partner. And no, hopefully we'll have to do a part 2
Oh,
or part 10.
I know.
We'll see where this goes, because we haven't even talked about what amazing commercials
Oh
and
my
bit parts
gosh.
you've acted in.
Yes.
So
And hopefully on the next one, there won't be another world crisis that we have
yes.
to like, oh, we just lived through that too.
Yeah, no, you've had 2 or 3, and we're gonna say no more
Oh
for
my gosh. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
So
Well, thank you. This
no,
was
thank you
awesome.
again for
Thank
being
you.
with us. Hey, folks, check out. You'll be able to find all of Shanna's contact information in the comments below. Please stand by. We're going to probably do a little bit behind the scenes, go a little bit deeper on a few topics, but it's been an amazing interview. We want to thank Shana again. Thank you for being re-inspired. We'll see you soon. Thanks.